Hi, Vineet. Welcome.
Yeah,
Welcome to this interaction. Uh, to give you a good, to give you a sense of what MFH is and what we are. MFH is an initiative by Government of Maharashtra to foster the fintech ecosystem in the state. Maharashtra, as you know, was one of the first states in the country to put together a policy for fintech in 2018. And over the last 2 years, the efforts have been to support fintechs and ecosystem at large in uh, creating more customer-centric solution and present Mumbai as a global fintech hub on a global stage. In that stead, global market access has been one of the key initiatives at Hub. And this newsletter initially started as a means to keep a healthy interaction going on between our partner hubs and our other stakeholders. One of the key components for this newsletter has been to showcase and reflect spotlight on our um, high achieving startups or rapidly growing startups where we see strong potential in terms of product, in terms of founders, in terms of space they are in. Um with the recent work you've done with MSRTC and the promise you've shown with offline payments, City Cash became uh, the usual choice to profile for the FinTech of the month for this edition of the newsletter. With having said that, I would love to hear your views about how the journey started, what led to the inception of City Cash, a background about your journey, how you started your journey in the private space, and what led to City Cash.
thank you, Gaurav. Thank you. Thanks to Mumbai FinTech Hub team. In fact, our discussions with Sumiti, in fact, go back to as much as 3 years back when we first met. So I think all of us have come a long way and seen all kinds of turbulent times. And the EY team and PwC team, which has actually, I like the fact that you are basically the opinion leaders and the who's who of the decision making world and payments world and regulators and bureaucrats and all the top decision making bodies. I hope the ministers, everybody is reading and everybody is listening, to the voices which are coming from the ground, and entrepreneurs are the ones which are always connected to the ground. So clearly, thanks for that, and thanks for highlighting. It's a fantastic platform to bring out the thoughts and what is it that can be done in terms of looking towards the future and a bit of crystal ball gazing also, so that we'll do that. So you asked me what led to this journey and how City Cash I started. So I have a 25 years working experience in terms of what I've done. I've been in positions with Citibank. Then I was head of Asia for Infosys. Based out of Hong Kong and Shanghai, and that was kind of an eye-opener stint for me for 8 years in terms of the global market potential where India is placed relatively. And over there, interestingly, I saw the very successful model of Octopus cards. So the transit industry world over has been revolutionized by this offline tap and pay cards like Octopus cards in Hong Kong, or I used to travel to Tokyo very frequently, and Suica card was always there in my pocket. And Singapore was my like breakfast or lunch 2 or 3 times in a month. So EasyLink card over there. Then London was always on travel for various our regional meets. We used to have an Infosys, again Oyster card. So I realized, well, every world city I'm traveling to, and every world city has a card, and it's such a fantastic product. You buy the card and you completely move across any modes of transit, metro, bus, anything, and seamlessly just tap in, tap out kind of thing. So it's so convenient and fantastic. No need to look for small change and all. And because Infosys was India was also on our journey map almost every alternate month. I used to travel to India, and then I used to feel bad landing in Mumbai, transiting to Bangalore or via Delhi, Hong Kong to Delhi, and then again transiting. There is not a single city in India which has a card like this. So where are we lacking? Are we are we short of technology, or there is some other reason? So that's what led me to investigate a lot of global models, technology, everything, and then I realized there is a massive opportunity in India. because of the given the market size and all, which I definitely will talk about it more during the interview. So this is what was the journey when I'm shifted back to India. Even though I was in investments business with Equirus Capital, this thing stayed at the back of my mind. I said the one or the other day, I need to bring this technology into India, and this is my calling. Before I hang up my boots in terms of my corporate career, which I have put myself in age of 55, I said this is now the 5-10 years that I need to make a difference, and I started CityCash actually with developing everything homegrown technology, which is second to none in terms of scale, in terms of applicability, and a model which is absolutely a global model of open cards and digitize with the aim to digitize transit completely.
Well said. So, as they say, an advanced city is not the one where even the poor drives in a car, but the one where rich can also drive in a public transport system. And in the current scape, as we move forward in the future, we'll see more and more urbanization and drive towards the metros and the mega cities. In the wake of the same, public transport are bound to play a very crucial role as we move forward. Having said that, how would you poise India's cashless transit system compared to the global transit system, where we are in terms of offline payments, cashless payments in public transport sphere, compared to our global counterparts?
Um, I would give actually India 1 on 10, and not because I'm an Indian. I feel I have every right to be critical of India because I want to see India definitely progressing, and that's the reason I came back to India. Okay, and why I'm giving 1 on 10. The potential exists. We have the largest global market in terms of public transit. Given the per capita income in India, it is more so that compared to even China, we should be having 2 times the use of public transit because the per capita income is a quarter of China right now, or 1/5 of China, right? But on the other hand, what has happened is due to myopic visions, so far in terms of how things have been, handled in public transit. We have not seen the sector realize its true potential, and that is why, as a fallout of that, we are grappling with choked cities in terms of heavy traffic and one of the worst traffic in the world, and people getting inconvenienced. The daily travel in Mumbai, it's a harrowing journey, even if you're going in a chauffeur-driven AC limousine car, right? And the reason I see is twofold. One is the government has always thought that public transit is a social good, and social good is something that the government needs to subsidize. And in doing so, yes, government does subsidize. Absolutely, we are operating way below the cost of what the public transit should be, right? So in a way, yes, it is socialism. But what is happening as a result is the quality of the transit that you're providing, the actual, the reliability that you're providing, absolutely is pathetic. It is. I should not use the word third world. It's actually even beyond that. Because over the decades of the subsidization that we have done, we obviously had no means to actually improve the quality because if something was coming at the cost of something else. So as a result, those who could afford to travel to public transit and pay market cost, they don't have a problem. They want convenience. I mean, in Hong Kong, I had a car, but I would definitely prefer traveling in a bus to the airport because it just gave me some fantastic peace of mind. And I could do my work and enjoy the luxurious ride of a good Volvo bus. Why can't we do that in India? So the reason is the government should now look at a inverted model. Government should look at pricing the public transit on its market prices clearly, right? So that the tremendous investments can be made when you bring the pricing to the public pricing, and the confidence comes in the private sector also to co-invest. Exactly what happened in the airlines industry 2 decades or 2.5 decades back when we moved from Air India as a monopoly to multiple this thing. Now Air India also survives, Air India also grows, and all the other grows. So as a result, what will happen is the public transit will see a massive growth. Yes, Ola and Uber are there, but they are not really public transit. They are more of private transit. So once the public transit system starts growing, the government, to fulfill its social obligation, can actually use the digitization to administer direct benefit transfer. And this government is very big on DBT, and rightly so, if somebody government feels that he should be subsidized and he or she deserves because he's a student or he's some special category or a BPL person or whatever, you could have transit vouchers credited on the card and the person could just pay the right amount of ticket. I mean, so this is where the quality of transit will improve while government will also fulfill its social obligation and public by and large will really benefit. And this is where we are lacking.
So Vineet, taking a cue from that, uh, agree to a great deal what is said in terms of the opportunity which exists in public transport space. Uh, what do you think, beyond the socialist approach, is the cost of deploying or cost of going digital is also one of the reasons why we have not seen a major uptake in public transit space of digital payments and going cashless? And if so, then how an open loop system like yours and how an NCMC stack helps address those solutions, and how essentially CityCash has taken the NCMC standards further to sort of address those challenges?
Okay, thank you. So, look, what is needed for the public bus system is twofold. One is increase the availability of the transport, which I addressed saying, it is more due to the faulty pricing. And as a result, we are highly underinvested. Now, let's talk the other aspect also, which is basically becoming consumer focused, because a public transit is ultimately, end of the day, it's a consumer focused business, right? So, in a consumer focused business, the corporation which is running or whichever entity which is running, whether it's a private company or public corporation, it doesn't matter. You have to be close to your consumer and create the convenience for the consumer. How will the convenience come for the consumer? The consumer wants the bus system to be reliable, first of all. He or she wants to understand, the bus schedules and everything in terms of availability and all those things. So that requires technology, real-time tracking of the bus system, and customer having the real-time information in terms of the estimated time of arrival or something. And I'm discussing consumer journey. Now, once I know I've decided to travel by the bus and the bus is going to arrive in 15 minutes, I should clearly have the option to purchase a ticket digitally, because I don't want to walk up to the conductor and actually, ask for a ticket and that to pay in cash amounts like 20, 30 odd amounts, 25 rupees kind of amounts. So digital, I should be able to purchase the payment digitally. Technology allows us to do that very clearly. We know. Then I need to be able to walk into the bus system, and either I can be able to tap the card on the so as to validate my journey, or I should be able to do a QR code based validation on my own, and my journey is kind of on the route, and I can deboard the bus. So this requires again a technology for the bus corporation to invest in terms of digitization, where the stack is providing you a complete digital ticketing option where you eliminate paper based ticketing, where you look at all digital ticketing. You provide a unified payment gateway to the consumers. Let the consumer decide whichever way he or she wants to pay. There are various ways to pay. There is, of course, UPI QR, there is Bharat QR, then there is a debit credit card, which every Indian is carrying a debit card today. Then on top of that, there is NCMC. Now, NCMC is slightly different because it's an offline chip which is there on the card. So NCMC cards will definitely be there very big as per RBI mandate. All new cards will be issued with NCMC, but it will require a few more years to percolate to a level where it becomes a common man's product. So during that transition phase of the next 3 to 4 years, you need to give all choices to the consumer in terms of offline payments also, online payments also, and let the consumer decide. And in doing so, the bus corporations will generate massive amount of data, because once they know and they go digital on the ticketing and the entire solution, they will understand who is their consumer, who's traveling, and the travel patterns. And based on running a real-time analytics and everything, they can decide on the route and occupancy analysis, and actually feed the buses in the routes where there is a real high occupancy, and dynamically change the routes and everything, right? As how Ola and Uber do. Eventually, the bus system with all this data can move to a dynamic pricing, like how you've seen Uber or Ola operating surge pricing, what they call. Surge may not be the appropriate word that can be used in a public system, but you can call it as a dynamic pricing. And this is where we have to go towards, so that you balance the peak hour problem in the bus, and you incentivize people to travel in off peak hours or off days or something, and thereby utilizing the infrastructure.
Interesting. One of the questions which has been very common. So offline payments. Why offline payments is more suited to public transit needs compared to something like a Google Pay or a Phone Pay or a Paytm has been a common discussion across. Considering you have been championing offline payments compared to more digital payments. What are your views on that?
Yeah. So look, the public transit system world over operates on offline payment, and there is a very, very good reason for this. Public transit system requires very, very high footfall, and those footfalls are, hundreds in a matter of minutes. So all the current payment systems, which is basically the UPI system or a debit credit card kind of system, they were all designed for retail payments, which were basically online payments. At the time of doing the transaction, in all these payments, you need a network which has to be available on a very efficient scale, and the transaction has to get authenticated from the backend, and a success receipt has to be coming. Now, this works in a retail when you are doing a larger transaction of over a few hundred rupees. You have the time to wait, and the merchant is waiting. While in case of a public system, there is such a massive rush, and especially in a country like India, where in a bus of 50 people capacity, at a good time, you will be having 100 people traveling. So the time available for doing the payment is less than a second. Okay, that is number one. Number two, in case of online payments, failures are very, very common. So when you have a failed transaction, in case of a retail, you can retry the transaction, and you can, kind of, or reverse it or something with the merchant at later point of time. But in case of a public system, the values are too small, like order of 10 rupees, and that kind of tickets, or even less at times. Mumbai Best has 5 rupee tickets for small routes. So those kind of payments, if they fail, they are a sure recipe for a dispute and a problem, because you can't reverse those kind of small charges. The cost of reversing and investigating is very, very high. Such kind of payments, and there will be a dispute which the bus corporation simply, or a metro will simply not be ready to take on, because whether the payment was successful or not, actually nobody knows. So that is why online payments, which are real-time online payments, are a problem in the case of public transit, and I don't see them surging in any way. While you can technically pay, in our solution also we allow all the UPI payments to happen, but the experience of the consumer with offline payments is way better, and that's why the system will adapt to offline payment, and that is where the NCMC based common mobility standards come into play, which has an offline wallet on the card, wherein a consumer can just do a tap and go, and the transaction is settled on a batch mode, at a subsequent point of time later in the day. So the transaction always goes through as long as there is money on the card, and it will not fail, and it will not interrupt the usual operations also. And more than anything else, the offline payments are at a fraction of the cost compared to an online payment. Today, if you see the cost of online payments, nobody is focusing, but as you can see, the UPI failure rates have started going through the roof. It is very expensive to do a single online payment. For a 10 rupee payment on UPI, you will have one SMS coming to the consumer, one SMS actually going to the merchant, and the transaction would have traveled through multiple hops from PSP to NPCI servers, to the bank, to the issuing bank and acquiring bank. So all this is costs a lot. So definitely, zero MDR and everything is not going to work, and the failure rates will again be a big issue in small value micro payments.
When compared to in terms of errors, in terms of failure of payments compared to a digital payment, how does an offline payments looks like? A, in terms of the frequency of failures, and then B, in terms of a user journey. Quite a few of us are now aware of what a user journey looks like in terms of a digital payment failure or a UPI payment failure. But what is the user journey when it comes to an offline payment, and how frequent are failures in an offline system?
Okay, so the way offline payment works is actually quite different from online payment. In online payments, there is a store of money at the back end. It could be wallet, it could be your account, or it could be a credit linked account, right? And at the time of tap, it goes to the back end, and it authenticates either a debit from the PPI or the bank account, or it authorizes against your credit limit. In case of offline, what happens is actually you have a stored value on the card. So as a consumer, when I have an offline payment card, basically, let's say a business rule is set up, and this is a business rule. It's got nothing to do with. There's no limitation in terms of technology. If I say 500 rupees should be available always on my offline wallet. Now, my offline wallet is a chip which is basically on the card, obviously, which is what the NCMC Spark standards are. So it stores the money of 500 rupees in an offline mode on the chip, and it is connected to your backend. The backend, as I said, could be a prepaid wallet, it could be debit card, or it could be a credit card. It doesn't matter. It will keep pulling 500 rupees, and you could set a threshold for the minimum. So it's like, you have a minimum of, let's say, 50 rupees, which is defined that whenever the balance hits 50, pull 500 rupees back from the wallet. So that system, always remains populated, and it has 500 rupee loaded on the chip. So this is the consumer journey. Yes, there is a technical point of failure that my PPI wallet has zero money, or my account is zero money, or credit limit is denied. Then that 500 rupee obviously won't happen, but that's quite obvious. But once that 500 rupee offline wallet is there, when I walk into any payment situation, which is could be transit, it could be small value retail, the reader there is configured to read. And with that tap, in about 100 milliseconds, actually, what happens on technology is the reader has actually debited. Let's say it was a 10 rupee ticket. The reader has debited in that 100 milliseconds that amount from your wallet on the offline wallet, and actually rewritten a value. So you walked in with 100 rupee, 10 rupee ticket was there. It would have erased 100 rupee. It would have written 90 rupees back in that 100 millisecond. And actually the 10 rupee is sitting inside the reader as a successful transaction. Now, hundreds of such transactions can happen right as the day goes on, right? And basically the system is configured, the reader is configured to connect with the backend at predefined intervals. So let's say I put a business rule saying whenever there is 100 payments done or value equal to 1000 rupees or 1 hour, whichever of the three boundary conditions are breached, then connect with the backend and dump all the data at the backend. So this reader connects, and whatever is stored in the reader during those 100 transactions or 1 hour or 1000 rupee, whatever that happened, it dumps everything on the backend. Then the backend takes over and does the settlement, how it happens. So both operations went on while at the front end you had the system running all throughout the day, taking the payment, tap and go, while the reader connected with the backend at predefined frequency, and the settlement process goes on. So it is, actually speaking, it is the best of both worlds. The cost of transaction is actually a fraction of the online transaction, which is very important. We will talk about cost of transaction more maybe, but also the user experience becomes fantastic, and the merchant experience becomes fantastic, because in micro payments you are competing with the speed of cash and the reliability of cash. So it's like giving somebody 10 rupees, whatever time it takes. This payment should also take same time or less time, and it should be as efficient, and it should be as reliable as somebody doing a visual validation of 10 rupee note and completing the transaction.
And I agree. The massive potential which offline payments is reflective upon the first cohort of RBI regulatory sandbox being on offline payments. Congratulations on getting through the RBI regulatory sandbox. It would be interesting to get your perspective firsthand in terms of what do you see in terms of potential of innovation in offline payments, how it impacts in the last mile in Indian journey, and then what are your plans with the sandbox, and what are your goals with that?
Sure. So we had actually pioneered this entire solution in MSRTC. Our solution, if I may share the screen for the benefit of your viewers, it actually works in MSRTC. So this is the card that we launched in MSRTC along with Fino Payments Bank. So this is an NFC-based tap and pay. It is offline, and it is uniquely structured as a zero transaction charge to the corporation. So it's a multi-purpose dual chip card which works in transit and retail both. So this is the vision that we had, and we presented this entire product to RBI to say that this product can work in transit, it can work in retail in an offline mode, and you should allow us to enable payments in an offline mode also. RBI heard us with a lot of interest. We were called for multiple rounds of presentation with room full of at least as much as 20 to 25 people. So I was quite amazed. And once this actually happened, RBI allowed us for a sandbox. So basically, this idea of the sandbox was that the entire cycle will be run in a controlled environment, and we will choose a particular geographical location, which we have chosen a city in Maharashtra. It is called Sangamner, where there are a lot of transit consumers card we have, which use MSRTC bus system, and the same consumer walk into retail also. Typically grocery stores, eating out, the small kiranas and everything, and they will be using a tap and pay experience for this offline payments also. So our pilot is well underway, and we are seeing tremendous good response. We've already got 1,000 consumers onboarded in the last 10-15 days since we started, and people are actually using it, and we are getting fantastic reviews from the merchant and from the consumer both, that this is a reliable payment, and it becomes like a family card where you can it doesn't have any second two-factor authentication requirement or anything. So you don't need to answer have any pin here or link to your account. It is linked to a wallet, so it's perfectly safe for anybody in the family to use. And in case even if you lose, that my liability is limited to maybe 500 rupees loaded on the card. So that experience is going on very well, and we hope to report to RBI back sometimes after completing in 90 days, sometimes in April, May, with the findings of our entire experiment for the pilot. And let's see how RBI kind of mainstream the entire product. We have lots of suggestions based on our learning so far.
Interesting. Vineet, you happened to mention about MSRTC, and I remember public transport and working with public transport has been one of the key use cases for payments companies aiming to scale up. How has your ride been with MSRTC? And if you have to summarize your journey till date, what are the key 3 learnings while working with MSRTC in terms of scope, in terms of operations, and in terms of ground challenges? What has been the journey like?
Sure. So basically, with MSRTC, when we launched the card, the MSRTC happens to be the largest bus system in India. Actually, they have 20,000 buses and they have 8 to 9 million ridership. So it's a very big system. They have 250 cities, cities and towns, and they call it depots, where they have major halts. So the requirement for the corporation was that if we are going to go fully digital, then one needs to build a massive distribution scale also. So the benefit for the corporations are very, very clear. Earlier, they had the entire system which was cash driven, and the entire system of administering a lot of concessions was also totally cash driven, ID card driven. So let's say for example, the government allows senior citizens to travel with 50% discount. Now, earlier they could walk in, show their Aadhaar card, and claim a 50% discount on the ticket. Now, as you can understand, there's a discretion involved on board the bus between the individual and the conductor. And discretion means things can be misused. Clearly, that was one of the big use cases. Then students, there are 2.5 million students which use this bus corporation on a daily basis as they travel. Earlier, they could just take a ID card from the school and or the college, and they could walk into the bus and claim up to 66% concession. So the value lost to the corporation is obviously huge, and the authentication mechanism is totally manual. Again, discretion comes in, and there is no technology intervention there. And then there are millions of people who use it for their office work day and night, to their office and home commute. Again, those people had to line up at the bus corporation windows at the start of the month and buy a paper-based pass, and then flash that paper pass to the conductor every day as they travel. So these are all the issues that the corporation had. We suggested that you totally migrate now the entire this journey to digital card, right? So what we did now is we have come up with this senior citizen concession card, where first the senior citizen visits our business correspondent agent, which we work through Fino, and does his Aadhaar-based KYC. Now, once the KYC happens, his age is conclusively established, and his photograph is actually printed on the card, and the card is given to him. This card now carries, interestingly, a 4,000 kilometer annual wallet. So earlier, people could use or misuse the concession for unlimited number of time, unlimited kilometer. But now the government has set a limit of only 4,000 kilometer in a year, and post that you will have to pay full price of the ticket. So as and when the payment is made and this card has to be tapped, the 4,000 kilometer wallet keeps debited. So henceforth from April 1st, 2021, there shall be no concession administered in the bus system of MSRTC, all 20,000 buses, where anybody can claim showing his Aadhaar card. He or she will have to compulsorily tap this card to obtain the ticket, which will then spit out 50% discounted ticket based on the information contained in this card. Similarly, for students, earlier it was just a school ID card or something, and there we know what kind of malpractices can happen. Now, to issue a student ID card, the City Cash system is connected to Maharashtra government's portal. It is called SARAL. SARAL is the complete database of all schools in Maharashtra, where the government maintains it on a current basis. So when somebody comes for a student concession, he or she has to actually give his SARAL ID, and we do an API-based authentication with the SARAL database of the government. And based on the information contained therein, this card is issued, where all the information is written on the card in an encrypted format. So now, henceforth, once the schools open, as soon as government decides, 100% of this 2.5 million students will have to compulsorily obtain this card, and then you can obtain a concession ticket. And the advantages are many, because the card allows you the journey only on Monday to Friday. On a Saturday, Sunday, if it is a holiday, on the same route, you will have an invalid journey, or you try a different route from home to school versus you try to travel somewhere else, again it will show invalid. So you can imagine the tremendous amount of efficiency leakages that will be plugged as a result of this digitization, and government has now 100% digital data and record of who has consumed what kind of concession, or who has bought what tickets in the bus, and then thereafter they can appropriately frame the policies. So we are present in all 250 cities. 5,000 agents service these consumers, and we registered 4 million card holders in 6 months pre-COVID. And now again the volumes are picking up. In 6 months time, we had 4 million people actually buying these cards.
Interesting. Vineet, considering your success, you have worked with MSRTC, and recently I got to know that you're also now launching in southern states like Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Considering your success with transport authorities, transit authorities, and transport operators, according to you, what the retail banks and large banks should be aware of or should understand while negotiating to such transport authorities and transit authorities, while exploring public transit and digitization of public transit?
So look, I think the public transit is actually, I would say, skating on very thin ice right now. The reason is because of COVID. Their occupancies, 6 months anyways, they were all shut down. So government had massive liabilities of maintaining this entire fleet, all the salaries and all other fixed expenses which are there. Then again, the occupancies are not definitely back to the pre-COVID days, because a lot of travel disturbance has happened. People have stopped a lot of casual travels, and there's a lot of work from home also. Eventually, it will settle down to a new normal. I don't know what the new normal will be. So all the bus corporations are very clear now. They need to upgrade their technology stack, which is as old as probably 10 years old dated technology. Doesn't accept any digital payments, paper-based system, disconnect machines which don't have any data, and there is no digital, digitization of the entire vehicle tracking or anything of the kind. So they are now looking at this solution, how can we do that? And CityCash has a very simple approach with them, that we will not encourage any capex driven solution, because selling the entire solution and technology to a bus corporation which is public funded doesn't make sense. They are not technology companies adapted handling technology, so they invariably end up in a mess if they buy. The idea is very simple. You do a public-private partnership, and it has to be in a partnership mode, where companies like CityCash, which provide the entire technology stack, will partner with the ecosystem in the entire transit digitization. The ecosystem requires a bank to partner with us, where a bank plays the front-end role. It handles all the money, because bus corporations are only comfortable with the bank to handle large amounts of public money. T+1 settlement has to be done. So the bank plays a very, very critical role. Then there is a partnership with the device providers required, because devices are an ever evolving thing, right? Technology keeps changing, the price keeps going down, and standards keep evolving. Like today, there are QSpark standards. We are right now at QSpark 2.0. Who knows, 1 year down the line, we could be QSpark 3.0. 3.0 will means requires another round of certifications for all the device vendors. So you need to have a partnership with device vendors who together give the entire solution on an OPEX model. The OPEX model could be very clear, that I can work with the bus corporation on a per device solution, everything on a per month basis with the bus corporation on a fixed cost, or I can actually work with the bus corporation on a per ticket model, right? Which is then all inclusive price of ticket, machine, data connectivity, cloud hosting, everything all thrown in. And there is one particular price which is given to the bus corporation, and for them it is very simple. It is based on consumption. So if the occupancy goes up, they pay more. Otherwise, if the occupancy is less, they pay less. So this is the model to go, where the public-private partnership works, and the technology investments, devices, everything is brought in by the private partners, and the public system participates and allows to work with the consumer directly.
Fair. So, Vineet, as you said, as now the market and the ecosystem is changing its approach in the COVID days and in the post-COVID era, how has City Cash changed its approach? What has the strategy been? What were the some crucial product pivots, if any, there were? And what does the plan look like in the new normal or the post-COVID era for City Cash?
Sure. So I think what we did is, when COVID struck, obviously for 1 month everybody was dumbfounded, and I won't deny the same happened to us also. But I said, okay, never waste a crisis, right? This is a clear adage which an entrepreneur has to understand when he or she gets into this field. So crisis is here now. What do we do, right? And in fact, to borrow some colleagues, word, we called it creating opportunities in virus infected days, COVID. So what we did is we developed the entire technology stack in such a way that we brought in the concept of unified ticketing. Earlier, the bus corporation used to engage one vendor for device, one vendor for IT type of services, another vendor for manpower services, right? In the fourth contract was with the bank. And then they are grappling with managing these four people who are totally disconnected with each other, and fighting with each other all the times, and getting into a lot of disputes. We brought in a concept of unified ticketing system. The unified ticketing system is very simple. It is a complete stack of all the bus corporations requirement, which requires them to go digital. So basically, as you see on the screen, it has full digital ticketing stack all on one device. Okay. Then it has a unified payment gateway which handles all varieties of payments, including National Common Mobility Card. Let the consumer decide, he or she, whatever wants to pay, including the closed loop cards also, which all the bus corporation also wants to keep as a product alive. Then the same device now allows you to monitor the location of the vehicle at all points of time with a very high degree of accuracy. This data is consumed by bus corporation in terms of live dashboards and everything, and it is consumed by us to provide to the consumer a real-time information tracking of the bus route, where the bus is, estimated time of arrival for the consumer. How you see your Uber or Ola taxi approaching towards you, you are able to see the bus approaching towards you. And it also combines the passenger information system, where the bus corporation can see on a live real-time basis how many people are sitting in my bus right now, and at the next stop, how many people are going to deboard. So they have the exact idea of occupancy. So this is the entire unified ticketing stack, which is completely cloud hosted. Bus corporation need not invest even a single PC also for entire solution. Today, they have massive infrastructure laid out over all depots. We are saying you can save off 100% manpower cost, 100% of the local infrastructure. This is a device with a 4G data connected, and offered to you by the bank and the device company in City Cash together, and you can just pay as you go on a per ticket basis. So this is what all bus corporations are liking now. I will actually just play a 2 minutes video, because people who are going to watch can also visualize this entire solution and maybe benefit. So I'm just playing the video.
Sure.
So I hope you found the video useful. A few things you would have noticed. So it's a completely DIY system also, where the person who's a commuter need not come in contact with any conductor or anyone for buying a ticket. The ticket can be bought outside. It is an open ticket platform. This is for the first time we are introducing this concept where a ticket is bought for a particular route, and you can just walk into any bus which is traveling on the route, desired route, and just consume the ticket inside the bus, right? By scanning a QR code or by giving the short code, SMS code to the conductor, who will punch it on his device. So this is a totally paperless, cashless, conductorless kind of operations which are possible, intended at revenue maximization for the bus system, and also taking care of people who are technologically challenged. 50% people are using feature phones still. They're not comfortable with technology, or they cannot afford a smartphone. Things will change over a period of time, but they will not change dramatically overnight. So our solution also supports SMS-based ticketing for even feature phone users also. And definitely we are on the cutting edge of technology, where it supports a virtual card. You can download a card on your phone on the go and actually tap your phone. So no need to even buy a card. So that's the technology stack we are providing to all the bus corporations, where all demographics can be taken care of.
Interesting. Vinita, in the last few minutes of the discussion, I saw two interesting style of approaches in developing City Cash till now. While you have a very deep vertical integration done for bus transit ecosystem, you've also in the video shown how this also presents an opportunity of going into small retail and tapping these small transactions as well. Now, can you please share some light into what the traction has been like for City Cash overall, and what are the other areas beyond the bus transit which are likely to come for City Cash in the months to come?
So, look, our vision is very clear. We are creating a single, experience for the consumer for multimodal transit. This is how it happens all over US and Europe and all other big countries in Asia. And why should an Indian consumer not be offered the same convenience? When I want to step from home, I have means of, multiple means of travel. I may be taking for the first mile an auto rickshaw, second mile could be a bus, and the third mile could be an auto rickshaw. City Cash platform allows a consumer to plan his entire journey, wherein an auto rickshaw, metro, bus, all the entire journey can be plotted. One ticket can be created by paying digitally, and as a walk in, walk out of all these modes of transportation, and go just scan your QR code or tap your card and consume the ticket. So this will give extreme convenience to the consumers versus holding multiple payment instruments, doing multiple ticketing transactions and everything, and for handling cash in auto rickshaws and everything. So this will truly create a smart city platform for all modes of transit to come on one. Now, once the massive user base on transit has been acquired, the user, because it's an open card with RuPay, he or she will be encouraged to use this card for all small value payments by bringing in the merchant ecosystem also along, and creating cashback, attractive cashback offers and everything. So, for example, a McDonald could say that if you pay with this card during an off time, I would give you 10% cashback, right? So that same consumer, who is encouraged to use this same card for his, having a small meal at McDonald's. So those are the kind of things that will start happening, where the merchant ecosystem also becomes a part of this entire transit ecosystem. This is exactly how Octopus Card also in Hong Kong created, where they first got all modes of transit, then they got the municipal smart city applications like parking, completely digitized on offline tap and pay, all tolls, parking, everything, access control, everything came on Octopus Card. And then they opened the Octopus Card to all small value retail like 7-Eleven and coffee shops and everything. And thereby it became a de facto cash for the entire city. It's used 4 to 5 times a day at the minimum, right? Which is probably the most heavily used payment instrument in the world.
Interesting. Would you want to share some details about how the user base has been in terms of daily active users? What are these users commuting on, so on and so forth?
When we acquired these 4 million users, what we saw was a monthly active user base now of 400,000 users. On an average, a user was doing close to 400 rupees a month. And mind it, these were very initial days. The action started picking up. The product rolled out 2019 August September, and the action started picking up around Diwali time 2019 November. So November, December, January, February were the best month. Every month we saw massive 100% growth based on the base, and consumer spending 400 rupees a month in transit. As I said, for retail, it required a permission with RBI to open. So we have just opened up retail now, and we are doing the sandbox. So the card as of now is functioning only for transit use case. Widespread retail use case is only going to pick up once RBI mainstreams the entire, the product, in the sense all the regulatory, norms and everything are okay after that.
Vinith, you also, CityCash has also recently announced its fundraise with Orias. What are the plans with this fundraise in terms of strategic priorities, expanding into new markets and certain growth areas that you're planning for?
So Orias came in. So CityCash has very good capital. The first round was led by excellent, angel investors, which included the likes of Managing Director of Blackstone India, Matthew Syriac, and others, Jitendra Gupta, ex-PU MD, and all these people. Then we raised money. Actually, not that we raised. In fact, Fino made an inbound approach. Fino Holdings. We work with Fino and MSRTC. So Fino became an investor in CityCash. So they acquired 5% stake in CityCash. So that gave us a very good strategic foothold in an all Fino agent network, because we now, being an investing company of Fino, they go out of their way to help us on all our initiatives. Then post that, Orias actually invested doing a VC round. So post Orias, now we had started a fundraise plan for the next round. It got temporarily delayed due to COVID. But I can safely announce that a very major bank, probably one of the biggest banks in India, is ending with taking a stake in CityCash, a minority stake, the details of which may be out in the next couple of weeks. Is one of the largest private sector bank in India. So that will again further bolster our cap table in terms of excellent, investors like Orias and this big bank which is joining. And once that announcement is made, definitely, we expect all other major investors like VCs and impact investors and all to join for a larger round. So we'll be open definitely for a larger round somewhere around July, August, September quarter. Till that time, I think we are funded. So we'll be announcing this fundraise from this bank very soon in the next couple of months, a couple of weeks.
Vinith, it has been exciting interacting with you, specifically considering the potential offline payment presents and the kind of work you are doing. It definitely presents as a front runner for financial inclusion and inviting more and more people into the digital payments purview. Any final words for the listeners about what you see in terms of financial inclusion, India going to the next stage of digital payments, next level of maturity, and your final parting words?
Sure. No, definitely, I have some parting words. So one is, I want this interview to reach out to the decision makers at the highest level of the government, and there is one specific, thing that we want them to hear us as startups. I'm not speaking for CityCash. Why it is important is there are startups like us which are B2G2C. Government is more often than not one of the largest buyer of goods and services directly. So when government is buying services like entire digitization of its public transport, government needs to understand that startups are, the future of India, and Prime Minister himself has been saying, Stand Up India is going to be the bedrock of new job creation. So the government needs to look at startups very, very differently because they bring innovation. So when all these procurement of all these solutions are done, they are done through tenders. And when the tenders are created by government, they invariably tend to favor the incumbents by putting in very high qualification benchmarks like last 5 years of profitability or certain huge balance sheet size or some certain amount of experience, relevant experience in the sector. Now, if somebody had all of that, then by the very virtue he or she is not a startup. And startup means innovation. Startup means something new. So the government should give an opportunity to startups and relax all those kind of norms which are basically ending up disqualified. Here, I would like to qualify in bold letters. We are not asking for any kind of subsidy. We are only or favoritism towards the startup. We are saying, please just level the field for startups. I had written an editorial about this, which got published in Economic Times also, and it was tweeted by Nandan and Mohandas Pai and everyone. I hope this reaches out to decision makers clearly, and I would like the opinion thought leaders like MFH and PwC and EY to host a roundtable, around this, where uniquely take up the case of startups who are dealing with government, to bring all of them on the same platform so that we can express our views.
I certainly concur. While I would like to say that there have been initiatives from government side like GEM and GEM Startup Runway and relaxing in terms of EMD requirements, etc. Having said that, there's still a lot of which can be done. Thank you, Winnie. Thank you for taking out time and shedding light about the journey which CityCash has taken and how you're fostering offline payments in the Indian ecosystem. We'd love to stay in touch and looking forward to further such interactions. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, right? So I look forward to a session and remaining connected with you guys, and on and off, wherever there are inputs required, we'll be more than happy to work on. This is a long-term journey, so I think we are at the day one. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Right.